Zion Williamson became the fourth youngest All-Star behind Kobe, LeBron, and Magic. Rick, what's your biggest takeaway from the All-Star reserves?
There's two, but I'll start with the first one being that NBA players are susceptible to fake outrage on social media as anybody else, because all I'm seeing from LeBron James and all the stars is Devin Booker, most disrespected player in the league. How could he not be an all-star? It's as simple as that. Yeah, okay, let's finish the second part of that. Why isn't he an all-star? Well, there was an all-star from the Phoenix Suns. Who's that all-star? Oh, it's Chris Paul. It's LeBron James, one of LeBron James's boys. So if we're going to say that Devin Booker deserves to be an all-star, then the suggestion is who's going to be out? Should he be an all-star ahead of Chris Paul? Why don't we finish the tweet? You still had enough characters that you could have mentioned he deserved to be the all-star for the Suns over Chris Paul, but we didn't do that. It's an old rule. If you're going to complain about a guy who didn't make the all-star team, then you got to point out the guy that he should have been on there instead of. And that didn't happen here. And I wonder why that is. I don't like to traffic in conspiracy theories, but fellas, you're going to complain about Devin Booker not being an all-star, then you got to call out your boy Chris Paul and say, you know what, just because you're the president of the Players Association and you fought to have an all-star game in the first place doesn't necessarily mean that you should be an all-star.
Yeah, I got some takeaways, too. First, let me say this. I've been saying this for years. Apparently, it's falling on deaf ears. I think they should have 15 All-Stars in each conference. 12 was fine for 24 teams or less, but now you got 30 teams. It's hard to narrow it down to 12, so you always have snubs, which is fun, by the way, the snubs. But here, look, let me go to the East. I got to be honest. I can't argue with the Eastern Conference reserves for the most part. I was surprised that Nikola Vucevic of Orlando made it. Orlando's 13-19, but his numbers are great. 24 points, almost 12 rebounds, 40% from three. But I thought Domantas Sabonis would make it over him, and I think Sabonis deserved it. Indiana's playing well. They're the fourth seed, and Sabonis is 21, 11, 6 assists. I mean, he's playing great basketball. So that's my biggest snub in the East. To get to Devin Booker, who everybody's talking about, look, I think you could talk about DeMar DeRozan, too. San Antonio's winning. DeRozan's playing well. But I get it, and I really love Devin Booker's game. But if I had to pick one of the Suns to make the team, I've got to go with Chris Paul. Chris is leading them in assists with 8 a game. He's leading them in PER. He's giving you almost 17 points a game. Yes, Devin's their leading scorer. But this year, they are 20-10. Last year at this time, without Chris Paul, they were 11-20. And I know Phoenix looked great in the bubble, and everybody thinks that would have carried over. Who knows? Miami looked great in the bubble. That didn't carry over. So the bubble was a strange place. So I think Chris Paul does deserve to be an all-star, slightly over Devin Booker. Look, Booker may get in when Anthony Davis is removed because of injury. Hopefully that happens because he does deserve it. Zion's the other guy. People are wondering, does he really deserve to win? New Orleans is not winning. Should he be in there? I'm glad he's in there. I wouldn't have thrown a hissy fit if he didn't make it. But that dude is a scorer supreme. I mean, he just is. He's leading the league in points in the paint, 25 points a game. He needs to improve his rebounding and his defense. I like that they've put the ball in his hands because he actually is a pretty good playmaker, got some court vision. That's helped them improve and win 8 of their last 15. So I got no problem with Zion being there because we know he's going to be there for the next 10 to 12 years at least. So I think for the most part, I'm cool with the way the coaches did this.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway, when you look at Devin Booker getting snubbed, I think it is a legit snub. They're fifth in the West, and they're playing great basketball, and a lot of it is largely in part of Devin Booker. I also would say Devin Booker is a young and budding star. So when you look at it, that takes me to the East. Another takeaway was the amount of first and second appearance All-Star reserves selections. There were 5 out of 7, which I thought was pretty interesting. Means that there may be a possible starting of the changing of the guard. You gotta at some point, I know this might sound crazy, I know this, and you touched on this the other day. Look, Father Time is a free agent that he's on every team's roster, right? So as Father Time begins to catch up to the Chris Pauls who are deserving of being in the All-Star game, the perennial All-Star appearance guys, which we all know, once you become so popular, you're going, no matter what your stats are, no matter what it is. It was like that with the Pro Bowl. You know, guys are going to go that shouldn't necessarily be there, but they're there because of their reputations. Well, to see that many first-time, second-time reserves, and it was at 57%. There was 8 total of first and second appearances as All-Star reserve selections. It says to me that my takeaway, you're having to start to transition to those younger guys and start to put the spotlight on them so that you don't lose out too bad when Father Time finally comes and punches the cards of some of these guys that we've grown to love so much through the years watching the basketball game.
All right, I'll be brief because I want to get to the Chris versus Rick steel cage match over Devin Booker and Chris Paul. My 2 takeaways, I love Zach LaVine and Zion being in the All-Star game. This is a showcase for fans. This is a dunk-a-thon, all alley-oops. Like, it's fun. Like, I want to see guys that can jump out of the gym. I know Trae Young's a little upset he didn't make it. Hey, man, there's always next year. All right, Chris and Rick, I just don't understand how there's a case for Chris Paul over Devin Booker. I don't know who wants to take it away first, but Devin Booker needs to be in this game. Chris Paul has not earned it, man. He just hasn't.
This is not Chris versus Rick. This is Chris and Rick versus J. Matt. Because I don't have a problem with Chris Paul being their All-Star selection because the only reason that they're getting an All-Star is because of their record. And Chris Paul is the biggest reason why that record is ultimately different. So I don't have an issue with Chris Paul being their All-Star selection. I have a problem with NBA players crying about Devin Booker not being the selection and not identifying why he's not the selection.
Who paying you? Who paying you, Rick? Who paying you?
Look,
Devin Booker, stand up.
Y'all watch, if you watch the Suns play, Rick is right on the money. And this is nothing against Devin Booker. Devin Booker is a legitimate All-Star caliber player. And if he were in the East, he's probably in the All-Star game, maybe not even just once, but a couple of times. But in the West, it's tough. And look at who am you taking off? You don't take off Chris Paul. You certainly don't take off Lillard and Donovan Mitchell. So like I said, he may get in because Anthony Davis is hurt. Right. But come on, who am I taking off?
But even not hurt, like Anthony Davis, honestly, with games missed, with where his numbers are, with how he's played this season, is he really an All-Star? I mean, talent-wise, he is. Maybe record-wise with the Lakers. But San Antonio, you're going to put Zion in. They're not even in the playoff picture. And you're going to have nobody from San Antonio as the 5th seed represented.
Y'all worked very well.
And you're going to have Anthony Davis in there.
You two worked very well.
The last takeaway is it matters who your coach is. Like,
great job.
Sabonis deserves to be an All-Star. His numbers are the same as last year. Julius Randle, first-time All-Star. Who's his coach? Tom Thibodeau. In those coaches' conversations, who's going to carry more weight? Nate Bjorken, who's the brand-new out-of-the-box coach for Indiana? Or Tom Thibodeau in New York? That, to me, is an influence. And by the way, Stan Van Gundy is going to have to explain something to Brandon Ingram as why he stumped for Zion Williamson, because Ingram was an All-Star last year and had almost the same identical numbers. So I'm Brandon. I got a little side eye, like, hey, What happened? What happened to me?
It's gonna be
I thought I was the
spicy.
resident all-star.
Rick is just
Spicy
stirring
down
up
in New
all
Orleans,
this
huh?
coach drama. Oh, Stan Van Gundy, Rick Carlisle. Maybe next Rick will do more. Is KD rushing back too soon? We'll have the latest next.
Let's stir it.